Marvel Remix. This is Fantasy Realms, but with Marvel characters. Thank you for attending my tech talk. Have a great day. But seriously, it is Fantasy Realms if you know the game with Marvel characters. Nothing wrong with that because a lot of things that are already good without Marvel characters just become better with Marvel characters. That is something that I notice in life. It's a great truth. So, you're gonna have two decks, a deck of remix cards and a deck of villain cards. You shuffle, shuffle, shuffle each separately at the beginning of the game. You give 6 remix cards to each player and 1 villain to each player. And the remix cards will have heroes, as you can see it says so. We're going to have allies, maneuvers, locations, equipment, and conditions, and of course different types. As you can see, a lot of unique art here, and I like that very much. Some unique effects, such as some cards can transform if you can meet the requirement indicated there, meaning if you have one of those symbols in your hand, then it's transformed. If you can transform, you must transform. Some other effects say you blank another card, or the card blanks itself unless certain things or happen. And basically, you will use the icons on the left side of each card to trigger different kinds of effects. When you see a plus something, that means victory points that you're gaining. Minus something, those are victory points that you lose. The values that you see here in the top left corner, which may change because rogue, that also indicates victory points. So you will have your hand of 6 remix cards and also 1 villain. And villains were the same. They have a value here, which is victory points and different conditions. Say, for example, the Black Cat will give you some points, plus more points because she's an Arbangal, so more points if you have locations with that icon there, cities, but then she doesn't like people maneuvering around too much, and so she will give you that penalty. The Sentinels, a good number of victory points, but you're still going to overall lose points unless there's a bunch of mutants in your hand that can keep the Sentinels at bay. Then it'll be 12 points if at the end of the game this card is in a hand without 2 or more cards with that symbol. Then you lose a total of 8 instead. So that's the general idea, that it will start with a hand of 7. These 2 decks are in the middle of the table, and there's another area which is the discard area. Players will alternate taking turns going around the table. Each turn you must take 1 of 3 actions, and they're pretty simple. Action number 1, you draw a card from the remix deck, and then you take a card from your hand and you discard it face up in the discard area, like so. We're talking about blanking, so this is the hidden layer, which is a lot of points if you find it, but also it allows villains to hide. And so if you have a villain, there will be a lot of points. Is blanked unless you have 2 or more of those icons at the end of the game. So action number 1, take a remix card, put it in your hand, discard a card face up, or take a villain into your hand. Toad. I don't like to see your face, to look at your face. Let's go back to the Sentinels. Or Abomination, that's a pretty face. Abomination, so I take a villain into my hand and then I discard a card in the middle of the table, in the discard area. Or I take a card from the discard area and I place another one there. So basically the idea is that you will take a card from one of these 3 locations, 1 to 2 decks to the discard area, and place another one there. So sometimes the number of cards in the discard area will increase if you take from 1 of the 2 decks. Sometimes you won't if you take from the discard area. The number of cards in the discard area also triggers the end of the game. When there are 10 cards face up in the discard area, the game is over, and simply put, players will reveal their hand. At that point, you need to have at least 1 villain and at least 1 hero or ally, because it's Marvel Universe, so we got teams of heroes and allies going against the villains. Otherwise, there's no point. and then you score points. Then you will place, so if you don't have those, at least an ally and hero, ally or hero, and a villain, then you don't score any points. If you do have those, then you place your cards face up, in a line, possibly. Somebody takes this pad here and start asking people, okay, how many points you got from card number 1? And everybody says that, because you will need to calculate each card. Some are obvious, like Hulk right now is 13 because I transformed it, and other require more of a procedure to check, okay, Abomination is 13 and I do have enough cards to avoid the penalty, and so on and so forth. So each card is scored individually. You total the total victory points for each player, and the player with the most victory points wins the game. And this is how you play Marvel Remix. I don't often do tutorials, but for once I was able to explain every rule in the game to you, because the game is so simple. So the game is super simple to teach, and is also super simple to play for veteran players. I was gonna say this is the ideal, the perfect filler, because it's so simple to set up, quick to play. But then I also played it with non-hardcore gamers, more like casual players, and they got all be confused and they got all be stuck, because they were looking at every icon and tried to maximize, figure out how to do things exactly. They were trying to make sure that every icon is used, and they were also, while being confused by so many icons. Us old veterans of gaming, we knew that with this icon salad and so much randomness going around, the point is not to play like this. Is a tight, sophisticated Euro game. It's about managing chaos. It's about get as many of those icons to give as much as they possibly can, sorta, kinda. Again, in a sense, like, yeah, I think I have enough icons, so this or that. Instead of looking at this as a min-max Euro game, look at it as a push your luck, which is ultimately what it is. Oh, I take this card, which would be good if by the end of the game is together with this or that, but it may or may not be the case, because that depends on how the actions the other players take, and because that determines how long the game will be. Some players may shut down the game early if they think they have a hand that is good enough. Matter of fact, after a couple of rounds, everybody is within fairly, sniffing distance from ending the game. And I would say almost that's one of the most important decisions that you make. Is my hand good enough? And I get a sense of how good it might be right now to end the game now. Again, you could totally kill the game by actually calculating your score in your mind every turn, and you're probably never going to be invited to play Remix again. You may not be invited to my game night again. I don't know. I'll give you a second chance. But that's the way of killing the game. So it is a game that may look daunting because of the number of icons and the number of effects, but as long as you take it as a light, push your luck game with a fun theme, with really good art, then it's really enjoyable. So, and again, it has the advantage of a filler, because it's so easy and quick to set up and teach and play. And you can play it in 5-10 minutes, easy. Of course, then, it may take almost as long to score it, but that is part of the experience. The overall length, even when you take scoring into account, will not overstay its welcome. So, Marvel Remix, a fun, light filler for committed gamers.